Becoming a homeowner is hard for many in today's housing market, and because of that, more people are purchasing homes in a not so traditional way.
Yeah, tonight KLTV 7's Naomi Sanchez breaks down the rise in multi-generational home buying and explains to us how this works.
Checking the mailbox is just one of the many things Francisco Sanchez takes pride in his new home. At the age of 28, he's now a first-time homeowner in Longview. Yet how he affords it is different than most.
Yeah, I pay the large chunk of the mortgage, and then my brother, pays rent, so that covers the rest of the remaining portion of the mortgage. I cover most of the bills and all of that, and I think my mom just covers food costs, and I think that's about it, and water.
It's called multi-generational home buying, which consists of several family generations living under one roof.
The purchase is most likely being made with the family member with the strongest financials, but in any case, they're pooling together financial strength of multiple generations, so they're more able to compete in this market.
Senior research analyst for the National Association of Realtors, Matt Christopherson, says this kind of home buying has steadily increased since the pandemic. In 2023, it made up 14% of home sales nationwide.
And it's really presenting a way to save money and pool resources.
According to Zillow.com, currently single-family house prices in cities like Tyler and Nacogdoches average at over $258,000 and $207,000. Compared to the start of 2020, these prices are over $85,000 and $47,000 more than during that time. Experts say buyers are just adapting.
This could definitely grow in popularity to pool those resources and combat the affordability issues.
However, realtor Christian Gonzalez says just like there are cost benefits, there are other things to consider.
There are ownership rights to a house, and just because you are helping pay the mortgage doesn't always mean that you are entitled to ownership rights in the house. As
the sole owner of the home, Francisco plans to someday transfer the title to his mother and purchase his second one. In the meantime, they'll continue working together as a family.
We'll definitely be able to pay it off at least, half the time that it would normally take.
Giving them a head start in the market. Naomi Sanchez, KLTV 7 News.
Experts say you can speak with your bank or lender to see what your best options are if you do decide to go that route. Katie?
Well,